Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Today, we've got something completely different. For one, it's a watch I'm not trying to sell you, as I'm not a dealer of this brand, nor do I have one in inventory. Second, it's refreshing in the modern era to find a robot that's not either going to steal your job or kill you. And that's exactly what we have here in the 2023 Azimuth Mr. Roboto Sapphire. A little bit of background. Chris Long of Singapore is an engineer and a watch collector who is one of the originals in the independent watch space, founding Azimuth in 2003. The watches are designed in Singapore, made in Neuchâtel, Switzerland, and in 2008 they launched a model that sort of became their signature, the whimsical Mr. Roboto, based on the 1983 Styx song. Yes, it's true. The watch has robot-like features inspired by the Lantern Robot Japanese tin toy of the 1950s. Now, for 2023, Mr. Roboto Sapphire sort of renews the line. This is the most unusual Roboto made yet. It's also the most expensive, and as of right now, I believe this remains a piece unique, though it's representative of one Azimuth could make if you are interested. It's sort of a test balloon, and I'm promoting it here because Chris is a good friend. I love Azimuth watches, and I root for the little guy. So we'll talk about price later. Let's talk about tech and spec. First, there are several different Mr. Robotos out there, but two primary sizes, the Mr. Roboto R1 and the Mr. Roboto R2. This Sapphire case is the size of the original Mr. Roboto, which means 42.5 millimeters from side to side, not including the tongue-in-cheek winding key. From lug tip to lug tip, 49.3 millimeters, and if we measure the case at maximum height, the total distance is a beefy 20.5 millimeters, and somewhat surprisingly, because it looks like it might be a proprietary strap junction, we do have a conventional 24 millimeter strap slot here for spring bars 25 millimeters wide, though if you look carefully, you can see that there's a little bit of shoulder on either side of the strap, so the strap is wider than the hollow for the spring bar, so keep in mind, you're going to want to either use an Azimuth strap here if you get the model, or you're going to want to have something custom made. We've got this lovely sky blue leather strap with a double sky blue matching stitch. You can see it's a sheer cut side showing the layers of leather. Very supple, a little bit like a Grand Seiko strap. It's buttery soft even though it's brand new and it's never been broken in. Now we also have an Azimuth deployant clasp here. You can see the symbol of Azimuth is inspired by the hairspring of a watch when you hang the balance from your tweezers. It stretches out and creates something very much like this. This is a triple finished clasp. It's also a twin trigger deployant, so you have to press both sides for it to pop open, reassuring on a beefy and expensive watch like this. You can see internally it's engine turned and polished. Externally, it's satinated and polished. Now, Sapphire case watches have been around in some form since the Alain Silberstein Chrono Saphir of the late 1990s. Now, that was a hybrid metal and sapphire case, whereas this is sapphire intensive with only a little bit of metal fixing hardware like the screws that bind it. The case being made of sapphire is incredibly hard, 9 on the Mohs scale, second only to diamond, and in fact only diamond can scratch this material. That's not to say you couldn't shatter it if you did something ridiculous, but in daily life, doorknobs, car seatbelt buckles, your desk, even drywall, nothing is going to scratch this. If you hate scratched watches, this is your Mr. Roboto. The crown is not necessary for winding, though you can use it for winding. It's primarily for setting the regulator display and the GMT. It has the appearance of a winding crown on the 1950s Lantern Robot. A couple of things going on the dial. First, you could see that there are two eyes. Basically, it's like a face. Eyes, nose, and mouth. And each one of these eyes is an independent hour display. The local one in 12-hour format is right here. And then we have a reference time zone that is adjacent in a 24-hour format. So you could see I'm able to adjust that 24-hour format in the intermediate setting position. When I pull the crown out all the way, now I activate the hacking seconds. This little tri-spoke pinwheel is your constant seconds. And you can see that there's also retrograde minutes down at the base of the dial. So I have separate hours, minutes, and seconds, which makes it a regulator. I have 2 time zones, including one in 24-hour format, settable independently, which makes it a GMT, and I have the retrograde minutes, which makes this a retrograde. And then there's a little scale above the eyes that can be used as an index. You see these little fat bands on each end? They represent the current hour. So, for example, in my local time zone, it's 3. Okay, that's easy enough. Now you can see that underneath the Sapphire, there's a Damascus pattern. Now this is Damascus style steel, so no two of these are going to be exactly alike. If more examples of the Roboto Sapphire are made, each one is going to have a distinct pattern. You can also see it says Autobot and BMF, and I believe that in this case, the idea is that the watch is friendly, and this is a shorthand for Be My Friend. Autobot might be a nod to Transformers and the good guys in that series. As you can see, in the dark, this is not a luminescent watch. So this is a robot for the light of day. Flipping it all over, you can see an Azimuth style logo on the rotor, and there's a couple of Azimuth logos. There's Azimuth spelled out in this form, and then there is the spiral. The movement is an ETA 2836 automatic. So a 2836 is basically the dual time version of the 2824. 28362, you can see it's a real ETA, not a Salida. It's got the ETA stamp on the base plate. Automatic winding, 36-hour power reserve, 4 Hz beat rate, 25 joules, stop seconds. It has the dual time capability in 12 and 24-hour format and the complication module with the retrograde. So it is a 36-hour automatic 4-position adjusted ETA base with an Azimuth module on top, and this is Azimuth's module. So if, like me, you like having a tank tough tractor with some sort of original watchmaking on the top, think Resonance, for example, this is a perfect combination. Now, actually wearing it is easier than you might think. Because it's made of sapphire, it's really light. That said, it's an absolute brick of a watch. And granted, it's not going to scratch, but it's definitely going to make contact because anything this proud of the wrist is bound to do so. I really think this is a lot of fun, and it's tough to describe this watch. When it was a robot, it was weird enough. Now that it is a sapphire robot watch, it's almost like I'm looking at an X-ray of a robot. But this, selling for 21,000 Swiss francs, is the most expensive Mr. Roboto to date. Now, that's about $23,000. That's a lot of money, but considering you may have one of the only examples in the world, exclusivity is guaranteed. Plus, Chris is a fun guy, and it's always nice to know your watchmaker. One of the reasons people go for independence as opposed to paying over list for a Rolex GMT is that you do get that one-on-one relationship with the people who made the watch. And I own a Mr. Roboto, which is the Bronzo Artist Series. And when I went to Singapore in the last year, I actually met up with Chris and Addie Soon, who runs Isochrono, and we had a little mini Mr. Roboto Appreciation Society get-together at Watchbox Singapore. So when you wear a little watch like this from a brand like that, it's not just a consumer article, you sort of become part of the club. Reach out to me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for more information. By the way, 30 meters water resistant, so don't take Mr. Roboto swimming. But for everything else, sapphire case, well nigh indestructible. I can help connect you with the right people if you're interested. Again, not a watch I have to sell, but reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for information.